Grief has come back for the first time since Black Ops 2 and has brought with it a certain intrigue, to be sure. Would it work exactly like it did in the past? Would Treyarch iterate on the mode and make updates for more modern games? Now that it is here, we have our answers, and I want to briefly talk about all of that and then discuss if it is good and if it is something truly beneficial for Black Ops 6 Zombies as a whole. Before that, I want to cover what Grief was back in Black Ops 2 so we can compare. Back then, it was a 4 vs 4 matchup where the goal was for one team to outlive the other. This took place on some maps, and the larger maps where it took place only let you play within a smaller cutaway section of the map during Grief matches. If one team all goes down in a round, then at least one person must survive from the other team, and boom, that team will win. If no one survives a round, then it resets that round and you go again until either you progress further into the rounds or one team dies and the other survives on the same round that was just reset. There wasn't a ton to do to mess with the other team, but there were some options. Shooting or knifing an opposing player would cause them a daze effect where their movement is interrupted and their vision is obscured momentarily. There were EMPs in some of the Black Ops 2 maps that could be used to interrupt box spins or shut off perks. There was also a meat power-up that could be thrown, and if thrown onto an enemy player, then all zombies will be attracted to that player for a time. That was pretty much it for Black Ops 2. Survive better than the other enemies, and use what few options you have to leverage the odds in your favor. It wasn't the most popular mode, but it was there to shake up the normal gameplay flow for people that wanted something different. In Black Ops 6 Grief, things are a little different in some areas and the same in others. First up is the teams, which are again 4 against 4. The maps are available across every map in this game, however they are cutaway parts just like before. Difference being that some maps have only one section being used and some have up to 4 cutaway sections being used for that map. The goal is the same as expected, where one team wants to survive longer than the other. In Black Ops 6 though, as soon as the enemy team all goes down, your team will win and vice versa. There is no completing a round just like it was in Black Ops 2. This is a slight difference, so as soon as your team is done, they are done. There is no chance of hoping the other team can't survive. There are ways to mess with your enemies, with some of them being the same as before and some new additions. Sticking first with the same, we have shooting and knifing your enemies. Doing this will slow your opponent and possibly cause them trouble if they have a train behind them. The melee specifically has become a hot button issue within Black Ops 6 Grief, where with a mixture of melee macchiato and more responsive melee weapons in the game compared to Black Ops 2, you're able to really suppress your enemies by meleeing them non-stop, and if you coordinate that with your team, it can cause a lot of issues for your opponents. It's incredibly frustrating to be essentially stun-locked by your opponent, but it is Grief, so it's kind of the point to be frustrating in a way. I do think that they could tone this back without it being a problem. Something like making the stun not last quite as long, or preventing stuns from being stacked back to back to back. You know, if you've been stunned once, then after 5 seconds maybe is the next time you could be stunned, or after 3 seconds, to at least give you a chance to get away, or a chance to aim, or a chance to do anything, instead of just consistently being barraged by melee. Collision is on as well across teams, so you can body block enemies and potentially trap them in with a horde. As an overall note, there are no Easter eggs or wonder weapons available while playing Grief. The big new change comes with the capture zones, which are used to apply debuffs to your enemies. This will be a zone with an objective that 2 teams race to complete. 2 examples are killing enemies within the zone, and one where you have to melee kill enemies within the zone. There are more options, but those are just 2 examples. The first team to complete the given objective is the winner of that challenge and does not get a debuff applied to them. The losing team will be impacted by debuffs that are at times quite aggressive. There are currently 5 debuffs in the game, and this is what they all are. Ammo Drain. Players with this debuff slowly lose their reserve ammo over time for all their weapons. Frozen. Players with the debuff only move at 50% of their normal movement speed. Weapon Carousel. Players with this debuff will have their weapon randomly cycled over the duration of the debuff, and will be left with whatever weapon is given to them at the end of the debuff. You will retain the appropriate Pack-a-Punch level, rarity, and ammo mods applied to the weapon you originally had. Weapon Nerf. Players with this debuff do considerably less damage to zombies. Zombie Ambush. The team with this debuff has a horde of zombies and or elite zombies sent after them. These enemies will only attack the team with the debuff, and the other team is considered an ally to these zombies. With that, those are the biggest changes or things maintained directly pertaining to the Grief mode. And if we stopped there, I do believe that everyone would be pretty happy with this mode, myself included. But it doesn't end there. We've a little more to talk about yet, and there are things that happen within Grief simply because this game exists in Black Ops 6. Of course, you can get perks just like in any other match of zombies, but now you have your augments carrying over into here. This isn't inherently a bad thing, and is one of the things that I don't mind personally. The only downside is newer players not having the added bonuses of augments yet, and having a harder time against more experienced players. I argue, however, that a new player would struggle against a veteran regardless of if augments are in play or not. Another change due to Black Ops 6 is the addition of field upgrades to Grief. I will again say this isn't inherently bad, and you can refer to the previous argument for this as well. Veteran players will have an extra advantage, but everyone does have equal access to these perks and field upgrades, so have at it if you need to, level up, and get used to playing zombies before playing Grief. A big change within Black Ops 6 that I do start to think is pushing into the negative side is the fact that score streaks are used within Grief. In a mode entirely focused on making your opponent have a hard time and surviving longer than the people you're playing against, it can be very difficult when you get the advantage over your enemy and then they pop a chopper gunner and are completely untouchable for a while. Or they pop a mutant injection and they're completely untouchable for a while. You unleash a zombie horde against your enemy and suddenly they're now a mangler and they can't be touched. It's a bit frustrating, and I think it's something that could definitely be looked at as removing score streaks. I think this would help make the competition feel a little more interesting for players. Now, however, is the big one. Gobblegums are in Black Ops 6, and they too come into Grief. This is arguably the biggest hurdle in many players' eyes when it comes to enjoying Grief. I have always been a massive supporter of Gobblegums since Black Ops 3, because zombies is not a competitive game by nature, and therefore it never really mattered when people did or did not use Gobblegums. The only time it did matter was within speedruns, and in those cases where people are being competitive, there were separate categories for Gobblegum runs versus no Gobblegum runs. This kept things fair and balanced, and the player could choose which way to play. This is a tangent, but explains my point of view without going in too deep. The issue back now in Black Ops 6 is that Grief is competitive because you are in direct head-to-head competition with an opposing team. In this game, people can use Gobblegums as much as they please, which means those who have played more, a lot more, or more likely, those who have spent more money, are able to use Gobblegums at will and get extreme advantages over the other team. Facing off against a team that gets all perks and maxed weapons off the rip is a severe detriment to the mode. Same as if the enemies are downed, but there is one person who is running Phoenix up and will consistently revive their team and bring them back with all of their perks. This causes an issue. In a mode that is competitive by design, you have players who can spend money and boost their advantage over other players. This is not something that is easily gained because you don't earn a ton of Gobblegums just by playing the game. Unlike augments for field upgrades or perks, which come naturally from just playing, Gobblegums take a long time to get, and you aren't always going to get the best ones. If you only play once in a while for fun, you likely have a limited supply of Gobblegums and won't part with them as easily. If you play all day every day, or again more likely, spend a ton of money, then you're going to have a ton of Gobblegums and you can spam them as much as you want just to stomp your opponents. This is the biggest issue with the new version of Grief. At surface level, I really believe Treyarch did an amazing job bringing back this mode and adding that little extra flavor to it with the capture zones. There is just the elephant in the room, and it's those darned Gobblegums. I'm not just here to complain, so what is the best solution? Well, I think there are 3 options in my eyes, and 2 of them are very similar. The first option is to make 2 separate playlists, one where players can use as many Gobblegums as they choose, and the other playlist where no one can use any Gobblegums. Then the players can choose what they want to do, and they'll know what kind of players they're up against at the start of the match. The other 2 options are these. 1, you can remove Gobblegums entirely from all of Grief. 2, You can limit the players to only 5 gobblegums each. Once you use one from your loadout, that one is locked for the rest of the match until you have none to use. So the 5 you equip, you only get to use each one once, and then you're done. This choice may be the best one because it still allows players to use some of their gobblegums and adds to the flavor of that mode, but it doesn't allow the spam to keep happening for the entirety of the match. I think in terms of middle ground, this is as good as it would get, and is possibly something that could be pushed forward for Treyarch to put in the game. I highly doubt it, but it is possible. Any of these choices, though, could relieve the pressure that has been applied through frustration over gobblegums. I believe that if any of these choices are taken, though I doubt they'll take any because money, then Grief will be a truly kick-ass mode that is a bright spot to Black Ops 6, where players can go and test their skill against other Zombies players in a way that isn't typically available. It's not a perfect mode, it's not meant to be. You're generally going to get frustrated playing it because the entire point of the game mode is to piss off the other team and make their life miserable. But let me know what you think down in the comments below. If you enjoyed the video, like, comment, or subscribe. Until next time, keep on griefing.